This in-service will provide the building blocks of creating effective and memorable presentations. There is a growing body of research on how the brain learns, especially when it comes to learning with multimedia. A part of that research identifies ways to reduce cognitive overload during PowerPoint presentations. So we're going to look at three things in this presentation. We're first going to look at some of the research in this area, and then we're going to identify strategies for creating more effective PowerPoints based upon that research. And last, we're going to provide evidence that we must change our PowerPoint presentation habits to align with the way people learn. The design of PowerPoints should be compatible with how people learn. Think about it. How many of you were taught the 6 by 6 rule? That is, no more than 6 lines of text and no more than 6 words per line. I was taught this way, and I followed that method for many years. However, research conducted by Richard Mayer, his researches on multimedia learning, shows that even that amount of text on a slide is detrimental and will cause information overload. Now, keep in mind, the research is not about technology, but about how the human mind works and processes information. So in the next several slides, we will look at the 3 key concepts of how people learn. First, we're going to look at how scientists say that people process data in 2 channels, visual and verbal. The concept is called dual channels. Basically, people process information in 2 modes, by visually seeing it and also by verbally hearing it. However, there is a processing limit. When too much information is presented at once, the learner will have to decide which pieces of incoming information to pay attention to. Looking at this in light of a PowerPoint presentation, you would want to take advantage of the dual channel structure and ensure that the visual and the verbal information are complementary. What you read on the screen and what you hear the presenter say and what you see in images should all be very strongly aligned. Now next, we're going to talk about how the mind pays attention to only a few pieces of information from each channel. So here, this is known as the concept of limited capacity. People are only capable of holding a few images in the visual channel and a few narrated words in the verbal channel at any one time. People seek to actively process and make sense of information. Now, this last concept is called active processing. They need to actively select, organize, and integrate what's important into their own prior knowledge and mental structure. When creating PowerPoints, ask yourself if the presentation guides the process of selecting, organizing, and integrating information. There are 5 research-based principles that help create effective presentations. From the understanding how the mind works leads us to consider how this applies to our educational presentations. We know we want to reduce both the visual and the verbal information. We need to avoid putting too much information on one slide so as not to cause cognitive overload. So first, let's talk about some strategies. Write a clear headline that explains the main idea presented on the slide. This is called the signaling principle. Write the headline in active voice and use a subject and a verb. The headline should summarize the concept or idea. Keep fonts consistent and large. Mine is 40-point font, so it can easily be read by a person farthest away from the screen. Do not use more than 2 lines. By using some constraints, you will be keeping your words simple and understandable without too much detail. Next, we want to break up information into digestible chunks of data. This is called the segmentation principle for the research that people learn better when information is presented in bite-sized chunks. So a couple of suggestions are, number one, if you stay on a particular slide too long, you might want to consider breaking it down into several slides, like duplicate the problem slide and then divide the information in half. And then second, use the slide sorter view to see if the slides flow smoothly and there are no long pauses. Reduce visual overload by narrating content and moving the text off the screen. You don't have to have every word on your slide. This is called the modality principle. Basically, a screen full of text will overload the brain's visual channel. Move your on-screen text to the notes pane and shift to using the auditory channel by narrating and discussing the information verbally. Research has shown that people understand a multimedia presentation better when the information is presented in spoken words as opposed to text. Now, use visual images that strongly correlate with the narrated information. This is the multimedia principle, which shows that people learn better with words and images, especially when those images are strongly related to the content that is being heard. Use only one image per slide. Putting your words into pictures can sometimes be a challenge, but take advantage of the free resources such as Microsoft Clipart by Philip Martin, Discovery School, free digital photos, and there's just a wide variety of other educational sources, free sources, that should help you find images that work. And now cut out everything from your slide that does not support the main idea. This last item is called the coherence principle, and the basic concept is to keep it simple. Less is more when it comes to PowerPoint. The research behind this finding is that people tend to learn better when all the extras are excluded. Along with moving text off screen, also get rid of backgrounds, animations, and all those other bells and whistles that have really nothing to do with the content. Okay, so your assignment is to create or modify a PowerPoint presentation using these principles. So let's review. Have a clear headline that has a complete statement using a subject and verb. Keep the font size simple and large. Break up the slides into digestible chunks of data. And then take your text off screen. Use the notes pane for information. Don't have all the words on your screen. And narrate it. And use only one highly correlated image on the slide. Here are some resources that you may want to use that goes more into this research on beyond bullet points.